Thank you, colleagues. And for the benefit of our witnesses and to ensure that our meeting is run in an organized way, could you please make sure your microphone is muted when you're not speaking? When you have 30 seconds left from your speaking time, I will hold up my paper. For interpretation, please use the icon at the bottom of your screen. And now I'd like to wish a warm welcome to our witnesses. We have with us Dr. Natalia Karam, who is Executive Director and Undersecretary General of the United Nations, representing United Nations Population Fund, and Joel Spicer, President and CEO of Nutrition International.
Karam, we'll begin with you for 5 minutes of opening remarks, please.
I lost the interpreter. Am I to continue now, Mr. Chair?
You have the floor, Undersecretary.
Thank you so much.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairs, and committee members, thank you for inviting UNFPA, the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, to address the committee today. And moreover, thank you very much for Canada's continued generous support to UNFPA, especially for humanitarian assistance, and notably for our COVID response last year. Imagine a girl, she's 12 years old. She has just fled with her family, the only home that she has ever known due to fighting in her region. This 12-year-old girl loves school. She dreams of finishing her studies, finding decent work, and starting a family when she's ready. Now her hope is fading. Her family of 6 is confined to a tent in a makeshift refugee camp, and she's wondering when she will return to school. Many nights she goes to bed hungry. She lives in fear of violence and of COVID in the crowded encampment. And little does she know that she might never go back to school. She doesn't know yet that in a few months she's going to be married off to lessen the family's economic burden. With no contraception and no say, early childbirth is predictably going to be her fate, and soon she and her children may be trapped in merciless poverty that will ripple across generations. The COVID pandemic has put into sharp focus existing inequalities and the disproportionate impact of crisis on women and on girls. I see gender-based violence skyrocketing. Sexual and reproductive health services are being disrupted, and there's an increased need for mental health services, the psychosocial support women and girls need. And yes, child marriage, female genital mutilation, and adolescent pregnancy are all on the rise. And we know that adolescent trafficking and coercion soar in these contexts. Being in a humanitarian crisis can be devastating on its own. And now imagine being a pregnant 15-year-old girl displaced by conflict and having to give birth in a war zone, or having a miscarriage while coping with the trauma of displacement or disaster. Imagine this happens every day, getting your menstrual period for the first time and no sanitary supplies. We know from past epidemics in humanitarian and fragile settings that when healthcare services deemed unrelated to the epidemic response directly, such as sexual and reproductive health services, when these services are discontinued, this can result in more deaths than the epidemic itself. And in fact, the lack of access to quality sexual and reproductive health services among women of childbearing age are leading causes of death and disability. Countries affected by fragility and crisis account for more than 50% of deaths during childbirth worldwide. Sexual and reproductive health services and supplies are not a luxury. They are essential. They're life-saving, and they must be part of the COVID response. And the situation is especially devastating for adolescents, even before COVID-19, who faced greater social and logistical hurdles to access healthcare, limited access to social protection programs. So as the pandemic heightens these challenges, adolescents need confidential sexual and reproductive health care. They're asking for high quality, accurate information about sex, and this is critical. Last year, UNFPA, and again, thanks to Canada, was able to distribute more than 7 million dignity kits, which contain essential hygiene items, and we helped nearly 50 million women and young people access sexual and reproductive health and gender-based violence prevention and response services. And we provided PPEs, personal protective equipment, to health workers in more than 100 countries. As you know, they're predominantly female. Our COVID response has reaffirmed our strategic focus on ending unmet need for contraception, ending needless deaths in pregnancy and childbirth, and ending gender-based violence and harmful practices. We, throughout the pandemic, have been at the forefront of efforts to galvanize action for that woman. And now is the time for that healing and for that empowerment. So thank you again to the government and the people of Canada for your generous contributions in making a difference. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary General Canham, for your opening remarks. And we'll now turn the floor over to Mr. Spicer for 5 minutes, please. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. J'aimerais remercier les membres du comité.
I would like
Let me thank the members of the
to thank the members of the committee for having invited me to take the floor to talk about the vulnerabilities and exacerbation of vulnerabilities created by COVID-19 pandemic.
Organization with its headquarters right here in Canada. At Nutrition International, we've been working with governments as an expert ally to help them bring low-cost, high-impact nutrition and health interventions to scale for almost 30 years.
Mr. Spicer, can I briefly interrupt and just ask you to hold your mic closer to your mouth for the interpretation? That would be much appreciated.
You got it.
Thank you so much. Merci.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Normally, you'd expect to find a global organization headquartered in London or Geneva or New York, but we're proud to have our roots in Canada, but our branches are global. We reach over 500 million people around the world every year in more than 60 countries. Our partnership with Canada has so far saved 5 million children's lives and prevented millions of cases of anemia, stunting, and permanent mental impairment. Now, over this past year, we have witnessed the devastating impacts of COVID-19 across the countries in Africa and Asia where we work. To understand how this pandemic has amplified and intensified vulnerabilities due to malnutrition, it's important to highlight the role nutrition plays in overall health and immunity. Simply put, good nutrition is the foundation for human development. It is the critical ingredient every one of us needs to survive and to thrive. Without it, the brain cannot develop properly, the body cannot grow, and the immune system can't function effectively, leaving people vulnerable to infection and disease. So it's about accessing the right nutrition at the right time to prevent irreversible lifelong harm. So with that in mind, let's consider the impacts of the pandemic. Millions of women, adolescent girls, children, and newborns have not been able to access the preventive care and life-saving vitamins and minerals they need. Even low-case estimates project that by 2022, we're going to see 2.1 million additional cases of maternal anemia, 170,000 additional child deaths, and over $30 billion in additional productivity losses due to COVID-related increases in malnutrition. So what's clear to us is that the knock-on effects of COVID-19 in creating a malnutrition crisis are going to be a major obstacle in a global recovery from the pandemic. As we know, these impacts fall most heavily on women and girls and children. Malnutrition in the form of anemia is one of the most devastating manifestations of COVID-19 disruptions that we're seeing. Over 1 billion women and girls before the pandemic suffered from anemia, but those rates are now rising due to COVID-19. Anemia increases the chance of a woman dying during pregnancy and delivery. It stunts infant growth, and it damages the cognitive development of children, as well as weakening their immune systems, making them more susceptible to infection and disease. And if that weren't enough, it compromises their ability to learn in school and succeed there. Just to give you an example of this at country level, and an example that intersects with Dr. Kanem's testimony, how anemia is threatening women and girls' survival and health in our country programs in Tanzania. In a country where teenage pregnancy is on the rise, and more so since COVID-19, 1 out of every 4 adolescent girls between the age of 15 and 19 years old gets pregnant, some more than once. Now, 50% of these girls, including these young mothers, suffer from anemia. So when you combine these factors, rising early pregnancy rates and rising anemia, that puts them and their babies at incredible risk. The maternal mortality rate is 70 times, 70, that of Canada, and rising. And anemia is the culprit in more than 1 out of every 5 preventable deaths, even though it can be prevented at low cost. So the lives and potential of a generation of Tanzanian women, and the next generation too, is being undermined by anemia. The good news is we know what to do to combat it and how to do it at scale. It's one of the most cost-effective development interventions there is, and it gets results. But the fight against anemia has, up until now, lacked a global champion with the track record and credibility to rally the world. Canada is well positioned to be that champion. As you study the vulnerabilities created and amplified by COVID-19, we know that the global needs are massive and global resources are finite. Canada can't lead everywhere, but we can make a real difference if we increase our investments in a set of strategic, high-impact areas that build from existing leadership, credibility, and expertise. Nutrition is one of those areas, and it's essential for a global COVID recovery. 2021 is an essential year for nutrition. In Japan, Nutrition for Growth Summit in December will be the culmination of it. And we're positioned as a long-standing donor with a strong track record to rally the world around this issue and to mobilize that energy towards solving a major global problem. Being a catalyst for a global initiative to address anemia will strengthen Canada's broader investments to reinforce immune systems around the world while ensuring that the most vulnerable of this generation and the next have the opportunity to survive and thrive. And that will be something that all Canadians can be proud of in our country's response to COVID-19. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spicer, for your opening remarks. Colleagues, in light of the hard landing that we have at 5:30, we only have time for one round, but I am able to add a bit more time to each questioner. That takes us probably up to about 7 minutes per questioner, and feel free to share time with colleagues as you see fit. The first round of questions goes to Mr. Up to 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Kanim, for your opening remarks, and Mr. Spicer for your opening remarks. Mr. Spicer, I wanted to ask you, it is Mr., right? Mr. Spicer? Yeah. Just wanted to ask you, maybe you could elaborate on the challenge of anemia and specifically what things could be done to address this issue.
Thank you very much. So briefly, I will say that things like fortification of staple foods, things like multiple micronutrient supplements, which are very low cost, that are given before delivery, can help to reduce anemia. Important to note that a lot of vulnerability exists before birth and before getting pregnant. And so if you can shrink that pool, you shrink the pool of risk as well. And so when blood volume in a pregnant woman doubles during pregnancy and they're anemic already, that puts them at extreme risk of hemorrhage during pregnancy. And the face of this pandemic and this crisis in malnutrition is a teenage girl bleeding out on the operating room theater because she hasn't had low-cost, high-impact interventions like that.
Now, in a brief that you submitted, you also mentioned that access to vitamin A supplementation is a challenge, and that your view is that as a result of the pandemic, as many as 100 million children under 5 will miss their first 2 annual rounds of vitamin A supplementation due to the lockdowns and reallocation of resources, and 60 million children are at risk of missing their second supplementation. Could you tell us a little bit about what is going on there and what could be done in order to address that fallout from the pandemic?
Thanks for the question. The issue is very serious because it's not just a lack of coverage of vitamin A. And as a quick recap for the committee, vitamin A has been shown to reduce child mortality by up to 24% if you can get 2 capsules into a child in the space of a year. It reduces deaths from pneumonia, particularly from measles, and diarrhea. And Canada has been a leader in this issue. The world supply is produced in Ontario. It costs 2 cents per capsule, and it has to be the best example of a return on investment that there is. So as you rightly said, 100 million children have missed their round, and more are scheduled to miss rounds as well. Our modus operandi as Nutrition International is to work alongside governments and strengthen their ability, but in these cases, governments are overwhelmed. And so working with partners like UNICEF to scale up child health days, working to strengthen government systems so that they can be on top of it the next time is critical. What we're worried about is if you interrupt vaccines, regular vaccines like measles at the same time, you leave the population remarkably vulnerable to dying from things that we had, we had already put behind us, we thought, for the most part. But we're seeing a resurgence of these kinds of deaths. So vitamin A cuts measles prevalence by 50%, for example.
So I have a question before I go on to Dr. Kanim. If it's so inexpensive to provide the supplementation, what is the barrier from actually addressing this problem? So it's clearly not money.
Well, in some cases, I think it's fair that countries can step up and fund more of their own supplies, but it's more than just the product. And again, Canada providing the product guarantees the supply, but it's about the health system underlying. and how do we actually get those health systems to deliver it as well. So part of it is helping governments realize and plan for and budget for this. But we want to get to a world where most people are getting what they need from their food. But unfortunately, in many countries, that's going to take a long time. We're very happy that Canada has stepped up to provide funding for an emergency catch-up campaign for vitamin A only recently.
Thank you. Dr. Kaneem, in your introduction to your 2020 report regarding practices that harm women and girls and undermine equality, you say that, quote, clearly pledges and resolutions have not been sufficient to end harmful practices once and for all. What we need now are real change and real results, end quote. Beyond the pledges and resolutions, what actions are needed to end harmful practices, such as genital mutilation and child marriage? And more specifically, what types of programs, diplomatic initiatives, funding mechanisms would be more likely to be more effective than others?
Thank you very much indeed for this question. And it gets to the heart of the matter of the fundamental human dignity that every woman and girl deserves, no matter where she dwells. It's an honor for me to provide this testimony in the presence of Dr. Hetty Fry, who has stood up for the understanding that the mindset that women's rights are something nice to have is not the correct one. This is actually equality for half the people on the planet. This is the type of dialogue that UNFPA, along with UN Women, along with UNICEF, is right now promoting vis-a-vis the inherent violence that something, not only female genital mutilation, but child marriage represents. And both are too prevalent. Now, with the COVID situation and the so-called lockdowns, with girls not being in school, with all of the disruption in the health system, which Mr. Joel Spicer has alluded to, the logistical nightmare of a child, a girl, being home and accessible to a potential predatory environment, like in the vignette that I gave, being married off. The fact is that we were making progress on child marriage and on ending female genital mutilation apace before last year. Again, credit must be given where due. And Canada, as a core supporter of UNFPA, contributed to our ability to have community dialogues with parents, including male fathers, who for the first time were told this is actually what happens in that initiation ceremony. And this is why many people, women, can be affected even in pregnancy when you damage the birth canal. So we try to be very practical, but most fundamentally, we're promoting the idea that a girl's body is her own. She has the right to say no, and she should be coached not to acquiesce to what she's asked to do, but to think for herself and to have the aspirations of being treated equally under the law and within the family.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chung. I'm afraid that's your time. Thank you for that exchange. We'll now go to Ms. Sahota for 7 minutes, please.
Mr. Chair, may I just thank
Yes,
may
go
I
ahead,
just
Hetty.
thank Natalia for her kind words. Thank you.
That was very kind, and I'd like to thank you too, Dr. Kaneem. Thank you to both the witnesses for being here. Your testimony is incredible, and your experience and knowledge in this area. We are in awe of the work that you do. Dr. Kaneem, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about. It's very interesting on the works that you've written, and I think a lot of us can, or a lot of Canadians can get behind why female genital mutilation is wrong, child marriages, domestic or abuse, female abuse. Those are issues that exist, unfortunately, even in Canada. But I mean, the fact that they're rising around the world is very concerning to Canada. And of course, the commitment that Canada has announced for SRHR, I would say, is a little bit more controversial at times, although the government is an adamant supporter of making sure that we respect this as a right. I'd like to know a little bit more about if you can explain the terminology to me, first of all, and then get into a little bit more of why it is so essential, or what you think. Actually, I don't even want to lead you in this question. If you can really tell me about the impact that funding in that area is having and why it's necessary.
Well, thank you very much. And briefly, I think this is part of the reason why, in my opinion, Canada has been unique in terms of how you've addressed your foreign policy and the effect of solidarity around the world, which cannot be minimized. UNFPA is on the front lines when women and girls need attention in places like South Sudan, right now in Tigray, in Ethiopia, and all around the world where we are called to not only bear witness to some very sad situations, but also to act and to do things. So the import of your question is what can be done. From our perspective, when you ask women what they would want, the terminology of sexual and reproductive health is how we summarize respect for my body, respect for the power that I should have to make decisions. And how sad is it that when we polled women last year, it turns out that less than 60% of women, 57%, said that they had agency to decide, today I'm going to the clinic, today I'm leaving home, today I will decide on sexual relations with the male member of the family. So ultimately, I think whether married or not, women are in a precarious situation. By talking about sexuality, sometimes UNFPA is open to questions of taboo. And we know from facts and evidence that comprehensive sexuality education, such as is championed in Canada, is protective. It makes a difference. The last point that I'll make, given the time, is that Canada has also provided a lot of flexibility in terms of how UNFPA can program our funding in a humanitarian circumstance, but also under peacetime. During COVID, we were able to get out ahead of the curve because core funding was available. I could make decisions about redeploying at a time when logistics and crossing borders and all of the barriers went up to transport, PPEs, delivering personal protective equipment. That reprogramming of funds really allowed us to get on our feet, readapt, and to be able to meet the moment. I would also like to acknowledge that we have tried to interpret for the taxpayer perspective in Canada the value of what a Canadian dollar does when you can stretch that further. And this also overlaps with what Joel Spicer was saying vis-a-vis, it's not just the commodity. How are we going to get it to that rural area where that disabled person, where that woman who doesn't necessarily know that she has rights can avail herself of something like contraception? So ultimately, your political weight as well as your financial weight has made a world of difference. Thank you.
How does UNFPA work to address the taboo in particular? Like, how do you get into these communities and where you're saying, you know, such a huge percentage of women and girls don't even know that they have these rights? How do you get to them? How do you communicate to them? And then how do you remove that taboo from the communities at large or the countries themselves?
Well, you know, this is a great question because it's a two-pronged approach. As you know, UNFPA, the UN, works through governments. So part of my task as the head of UNFPA is to work with responsible officials. So not only the Minister of Health, but the Minister of Finance and the Minister of, Education understands that the taboo and the stigma is what drives something like HIV, where the highest prevalence of new infections is the African adolescent girl. So in fact, the statistics and the evidence are there, but they have to be interpreted country by country. We have the advantage of having local presence in over 150 locations over the world, where we've been there before, we're there for COVID, and we will be there after. But the second piece, which is as important, is to interpret statistics and epidemiology through the eye of the end user. For me, it's that 12-year-old girl that I described. She may be really smart, but she doesn't know, and ignorance should not kill her. So in a place like Niger, we have École des Maris for the husbands to be taught by midwives, and they come in droves. The men sit around under the tree or whatever it is, and the midwife explains to them, this is what happens during childbirth. And this is why if your wife has children every single year, her body can be depleted, and you can do something about that. This is what a condom is. This is what other options are for birth control. We also work very, very closely in tandem with NGOs. And Nutrition International happens to be one where we actually overlap. And you've heard Joel say that anemia can be one of the causes of death during childbirth. That's preventable. Mm-hmm. So let's do something to help explain to a woman, what should you be eating? What should you do if you are short of breath? Who do you call? And my last thing is that, and here again, the help of Canada, I just have to tell you very sincerely how honored I feel to give this testimony today. Gender-based violence is a taboo, and it's prevalent. It's a crime that affects 1 in 3 women and girls over the course of a lifetime. And the shame and the stigma applies to her, and it's so unfair. So what we're trying to do, especially this year, is to give voice against sexual and gender-based violence, against the terrible situation where you actually have sexual exploitation, sometimes by humanitarian workers. We're determined to end this and to have zero tolerance. So working as a united UN under the directorship of our Secretary General, who's called for peace in the home, and this is a call which again Canada responded to, that ceasefire also needs to take place in our own backyard, and we need to involve ourselves in protection of the rights of women and girls. Thank you very much.
Kanim, thank you. Thank you. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Hota. Maintenant, j'aimerais passer la parole à Monsieur. 7 minutes, un peu plus peut-être, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank our witnesses for their very much appreciated contributions to the work of this committee. At a first glance, when I examined the topics that our committee was going to address today, sexual health, nutrition, at a first glance, one might have thought that we were actually dealing with two very separate worlds, but your remarks have enabled us to understand that these two worlds are intimately connected with each other. And it's very, very relevant to have both of you here as witnesses for this session of the committee. Dr. Kanim, I would like to thank you for your enlightening testimony. I don't think anyone amongst us would have understood that sexual rights are not limited to abortion. Consequently, there is a whole range of rights that are interconnected with sexual rights. And so we really need to call a spade and say things exactly how they are and how they should be. And so thank you so much. You talk about Canada's contribution. You appear to be very grateful. My question is simple. We know that your organization is not funded from the United Nations General Fund. Rather, it's from special government contributions. Have you observed a drop in any contributions from member states since COVID-19?
broader than any one issue. For the Canadian support, which has been steadfast, we're ever grateful. It also tends to come early enough in the year for us to make a difference and to plan properly. And when COVID struck, I absolutely charged my team with not allowing COVID to become an excuse for not making progress towards 2030. I'm proud to say, and it wasn't easy, that last year, even despite, as you know, we had a loss of USA funding over the past 4 years, even despite that, we did not notice a drop. However, the impact on economies of COVID, we know will be much different in 2021. And here I do have a great deal of anxiety and sleepless nights, knowing that acts of international solidarity can sometimes be seen in competition with what's going on at home. And here I also believe that the devastating impact of the world economic crisis has a gendered dimension as well, as women are caretakers of the elderly, of children, as women are 70% of the health workforce. All of this worries me very, very much. And I would hasten to add that in the humanitarian circumstances, the need has increased. So our appeal for 800 million US dollars to help during the COVID humanitarian crisis, I have to say it's a desperate situation, and I don't think that it will be fulfilled. Thank you for the question.
Merci pour votre réponse.
Thank you for your answer, which is reassuring to the extent that we've observed that despite the crisis, the funding in general of your organization has not been affected to date. But I do, at the same time, hear your appeal because the needs are going to be greater still. So the international community needs to be even more generous. Now, you and Mr. Spicer have insisted on the impacts of COVID-19 on all of the problems surrounding sexual health and nutrition, which are often interrelated problems. And Dr. Kamim, you explain that this is largely due to the fact that children were confined at home rather than being sent to school or had less access to health care. Now, I need you to explain to me, or to help those who are listening us better understand, once confined at home, what is happening that would not be happening were the young girl to be at school? Because it's the same family setting, it's the same family members. So what has changed in that dynamic for there to be an increase in malnutrition, an increase in forced child marriage, an increase in genital mutilation? What is happening?
Well, thank you very much. And to put it simply, school is very protective in a number of ways. Well, of course, it's where education occurs, and this is going to be, in the long term, the girl's chance out of poverty. However, in a place like Kenya, which we've studied, the girl being home rather than going to school every day means that, first of all, she's accessible for coercion, for something like female genital mutilation, which normally occurs at a particular time of the year. When the girl is home, now there are a number of social issues that lead to her being taken away to have a traditional procedure, where the president of the country, President Kenyatta, has said, we want to put an end to FGM. The accessibility in a rural area, the message doesn't penetrate. Similarly, for the issue of child marriage, when the girl is home rather than going to school, the monitoring that normally takes place, the social interaction, someone to report to is no longer readily available. And lastly, with disruptions in the health system, the child is not getting the normal points of contact that you would expect regularly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bergeron. And the final round of questions this afternoon will go to Ms. McPherson again for 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank both our witnesses for being here today. This is fascinating. I'm delighted to see your SDG pins. I have to show you that I write all my notes for this committee in my SDG 5 notebook, because I need to remember how important it is that we are fighting for women and girls all the time. And I have to say, Dr. Canham, that I share your deep concerns about the international community failing to recognize the vital importance for this investment. And for me, it's the worry, the immediate concern that I have, of course, with impacts on women and girls around the world, but also the long tail of COVID-19 and how we know it could take years or even decades to recover from COVID-19, and that while we may be able to convince governments to do what needs to be done in the short term, that long-term austerity and nationalization is a huge concern for me. And so I just want to make it very clear, I want to get it on the record for our analysts, that what do we stand to lose if the global community does not recognize how vital this investment is right now? What do we stand to lose, please?
Well, again, and very briefly, and we'd be happy to expand even after the meeting. Canada, for example, is a key supporter to UNFPA supplies. We're the largest provider of contraception, voluntary contraception that women want to be able to plan their lives. This also has led to unintended pregnancies being prevented. So almost 4 million in a year due to Canadian funding, for example. Now, I also mentioned marginalized girls. The support that we have that allows marginalized girls to be reached by life skills programs approaching 400,000 a year. This wouldn't happen otherwise. The most important thing that I can really say and answer, though, is that in a world of COVID, we've seen how interconnected we all are. And we've also seen how devastating discrimination, racism, the taboos against women being the owners of her own body can be. So in line with Beijing 25, UNFPA is co-leading on bodily autonomy and sexual and reproductive health and rights, again, to make it clear that girls growing up have to have an image, and it has to become real, that they are fully equal in every sense of SDG 5. Thank you.
And just very quickly, and then we'll go to Mr. Spicer, but very quickly, how do we ensure that women and girls are at that table on that decision-making process? You know, one of the big pieces of SDG 5 is that women and girls are part of the decision-making process. They are part of the development of the programs that impact them. How do we make sure that that's happening?
Well, here within the UN, and also turning to the civil society, the idea that women can lead at every aspect of the spectrum, within her village, within her school. Certainly she can be minister and member of parliament, but the invitation to speak is something that we cannot take for granted. I gave the survey that we did on who decides whether or not you can even access the clinic. So ultimately, I think the understanding set in policy that gender equality means equality in every sphere, and that the power dynamic of saying to a rural farmer, you are a woman and you too should get that voucher or that investment. This is something that we inculcate. I mean, we call it leadership training in many areas. It's the nurse and the midwife who embodies that understanding. But we want girls to aspire to be fully equal in every way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spicer, I'd like to go to you now, and perhaps you could comment as well on how you see the shortfalls that we worry about, that we all have deep concerns about, how you could see that affecting populations, and perhaps you could touch upon the health aspects. So some of the things that we've seen in terms of fallback or fall down in terms of measles, in terms of malaria, in terms of other vaccinations, what we've lost during COVID, and what we stand to lose if we are not bold and ambitious with our goals for the coming years and decade.
Thanks for the question. I would say we are looking at some catastrophic outcomes where the possibility of losing 20 years of progress is very real in the nutrition world. We're looking at setbacks in equality, even more so. We're looking at the issue of governments moving a lot of their existing budgets, which are under significant pressure because of COVID, to responding to COVID away from investments in the social sector. My fear is that the economic disruption we're going to see, and I like your expression, the long tail of COVID, because that's where I think the sting will be in the tail there. And that where some of the impacts are going to be even more significant than we've seen elsewhere. I think we're going to see governments spending more and more of their money on the treatment side and less on the prevention side. As countries move into crisis, as children move into crisis, and they are farther down the curve of acute malnutrition, severe acute malnutrition, you're going to see the need to spend more money on more expensive treatments instead of investing in those community level structures, which are a critical part of the health system that can help prevent some of those burdens too. That's why it's key to lean in right now. I think, as I've said before, and as Dr. Kanem has said, those impacts are falling most heavily on women and girls. And we have to understand that it's not just a single word score of damage, it's a double and a triple word score of damage. Because when a mother is malnourished, that child goes on to be low birth weight, higher chance of stunting. When that child who is stunted grows up and they go to school, their learning outcomes are known to be subpar, and the income they earn later on in life is also much less. So we're talking about the need for smart focus that can break intergenerational transfers of poverty. And right now, you talk about the greatest transfer of wealth from baby boomers to Gen X. The greatest transfer of poverty that we have ever seen is about to take place right now. And that is the time to lean in completely. To a point earlier about missed opportunities that was raised, the world is structured and financed, and so is the COVID response, to create missed opportunities. And I hope what this committee takes away is indeed the fact that, while perhaps a happy accident that Dr. Kanem and I are on this same panel, that point that Canada and other donors need to take a no missed opportunities lens to what we're doing is so essential. There is no world in which investing in education without looking at nutrition or sexual and reproductive health makes sense. It's just a recipe for missed opportunities. So there's a lot we can do by being focused and intentional. And as a country, there's a lot we can do by picking our niches where we can find out areas where Canada can lead. Thank you.
Fascinating.
Ms.
Thank you so
McPherson,
much.
thank you very much for that exchange. And colleagues, that takes us to the end of our scheduled time with our witnesses today. I think all of us feel that we would have wanted much more time with you to explore these very important issues. But on our collective behalf, thank you for your time, for your expertise, and most importantly, for your leadership and service in making our world a better place. We're grateful. There's always the possibility of colleagues asking in writing, or you sending us supplementary points that you wanted to make and haven't had a chance to make in writing, but we're grateful to have had time with you this afternoon. And colleagues, we stand adjourned until our next meeting. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much.
Natalia, keep safe and well.
Thank you.
So good
Thank
to
you
see
so
you.
much.